Somewhere beyond the recesses of time and space, two podcasters are set adrift in a machine, picking up transmissions of movies that are forgotten but not gone.
Welcome to Movie Memory Machine 5-4. This is the mini-series where we give you 5 films based on the film that we cover each week. This is the very first one we're doing. I'm very excited to see where it goes. Listeners will know our conversation about Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, say the whole title every time.
Otherwise people won't know.
I mean, they don't want to get confused with the sequel, which is Operation Fortune, TBD.
Yeah, or Operation Fortune, Soup du Jour, which is all about their lunch order.
Takes place in France.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like Aubrey Plaza is very much a minestrone type girl, but Orson Fortune, he has French onion all over him. It's a very decadent and rich soup, much like him.
All right, so we are talking about Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. Truman, what comes to your mind? We talked a little bit at the beginning of the episode. I regret spending so much time on it, but we talked about Cary Grant and the origin of the spy character and how this film takes a lot of shortcuts.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts about where we're going to go with the films we're going to talk about today?
I mean, this movie stands on the shoulders of giants, clearly. So there's a wide field of different espionage-type adventures that we could be looking at. I'm interested to see which 5 items you've got to set us up. But I'm gonna assume some stylish, high-flying adventure and action with good-looking suits and good-looking people.
You might have your head in the right place. We might have mentioned some of these films already. We might not have. Let's find out what we've got.
Oh, Mission Impossible. Okay.
I mean, I think you could take the whole series, but I want to just focus specifically on the first one for this. Partly because I think it is what sets the paradigm for the modern spy film. And I like to compare that to, like, we talked a lot about James Bond and how that set the template for spies. I like kind of getting a gauge of where we are with spy films when you compare what was happening with Bond to what was happening with other spy films of the time. And I think another like big indicator of that was when Jason Bourne came out, when Die Another Day came out.
Yes. Yeah. You which way? 2 very different paths for a spy adventure to take.
This came out during the Timothy Dalton years.
Yes. Well, no, this came out during the Pierce Brosnan years. This was in the late 90s.
This is 96. Was GoldenEye already out at that point?
Yeah, GoldenEye came out in 1995.
Oh boy. Okay, well then what are your thoughts comparing this to GoldenEye?
Well, look, as a young lad who loved action movies at the time, I saw this a couple times, and I'm going to be honest, as a little kid, I was always a little disappointed by this movie because it was like, well, this isn't as shooty and action-y as the James Bond movies. GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies have more action than this.
Yeah.
Which is both a sign that, A, I would love to revisit this movie because it probably has a lot more intelligence to it and a much deeper storyline than I was looking for as a kid. And I think it also makes it interesting now that this was a kind of relatively restrained cloak and dagger spy thriller. Like the big stunt is just Tom Cruise dangling from a rope inside a building. And pretty much every movie since this one has been trying to one-up itself with more and more outlandish antics. So I think
to fucking space at this point, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's who's going to get there first, him or the Fast and the Furious people.
Yes, well, you touch on everything I wanted to mention about this film. It's tense. It's kind of an adult spy film to a degree. It takes itself seriously, but it can still have fun. You know, it rides that line pretty well. And it's Brian De Palma, so it's got a bit of Hitchcock in it, and that's going to be very important to, you know, what we discuss and what we have already discussed. But let's move on to the second film that I think will not surprise you.
Spy, indeed. I'm not surprised because you talked about this movie on the episode.
Yeah, I think that Okay, here's my big thing about Spy, is that Jason Statham in Spy, and we talked about this on the main episode, Jason Statham in Spy is what the entirety of Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre should have been. Mm-hmm. It's a play on hypermasculinity. It's a dumb spy who is somehow still effective. And frankly, what surprises me is that I don't know how Jason Statham can continue to play characters that he's already parodied and satirized and have us take him seriously. So the fact that Operation Fortune comes after Spy is baffling to me to a degree.
I think you'd be surprised what a large paycheck with a number of zeros on it and presumably multiple mortgages on expensive properties can do to one's ability to mock himself.
That is fair. I'm just saying, I don't know, like, Spy is having the fun that I think Operation Fortune wants to have.
Yes. I've not seen Spy, but I am having more fun looking at this image of Melissa McCarthy power sliding and shooting a gun than I was during any of the scenes where people are actually power sliding and shooting guns in Operation Fortune.
All right, well, that brings us to our next one, which is a fun little romp, maybe. TBD.
Casino Royale. The funny one, back when James Bond was fun and not serious.
I hate this film. I don't know why exactly.
It's kind of a dumb movie.
It's cringe. It's ick, and that's even before you get to Woody Allen.
This is a movie that I only have ever seen in fragments on TV as a child, and again, it would always get my interest in terms of like, oh, a James Bond movie, and then, oh, it's the one that's doing a bunch of jokes that were relevant to adults in the mid-1960s that mean nothing to me.
Yeah, so, okay, this film I think is important at the very least because it plays with the James Bond character for comedic effect. I think it's one of the first, maybe not one of the first, but it's one of the most popular early films to do a kind of spy comedy caper.
Yeah.
And particularly doing a parody on the tropes of James Bond, those very tropes that we talked about, creating the archetype that Orson Fortune is still playing into to this day.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of an interesting piece on the chessboard of how these characters came to be.
And, look, for all of its failings as a film, Casino Royale did give us a wonderful title song by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. It is, look, trumpet players out there are nodding their heads in agreement with me. That song slaps.
That makes up the majority of our listenership, are just trumpet players.
Just the most cursed audience imaginable.
All right, next up, one that I know we are both familiar with.
Kingsman. Hello, my dear friend. How I missed you.
Wow.
Watching Operation Fortune, wishing that it could be more like you.
Okay, interesting. I don't have as much love for this as you do. I enjoyed this very much, revisiting it before watching Operation Fortune. And I feel like it's the flip side to Spy, where this is a film that lets audiences know that they know that the audience came here for a good time, that the filmmakers know that the audience came here for a good time. And it plays with the tropes of the spy genre, while also kind of like leaning into the love of those tropes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it feels like, look, for me, watching this movie and going into it with no expectations, I think was such a fun surprise, because it truly feels like a movie that was made by someone who was obsessed with James Bond movies when they were young, and then has since grown up and reconsidered a lot of the other stuff that gets wrapped up in that, and made a movie that is kind of true to the childish spirit of those movies, but is also being sort of critical and poking fun at it at the same time.
That is a lot of layers.
It's sort of like Inception, a movie that I like far less than Kingsman: The Secret Service.
Yeah, so like I'm not really on board with Matthew Vaughn's bubblegum Tarantino thing, but this film achieves a very specific tone that I think is, that kind of towing the line between violent and, actiony, but fun and funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's clearly what Operation Fortune is trying to go for and completely fails at. So this is just kind of a better example of what I think can be done with that sort of atmosphere.
Just imagine if that big fight scene in the church where they're playing the guitar solo from Freebird, imagine if it was the Casino Royale music instead. And he's just kicking the shit out of people and setting them on fire. Love it.
Not the Chris Cornell song.
No. Chris Cornell didn't have a single trumpet in that song.
All right, and that brings us to our last film. I don't think it will be a surprise.
Roger O. Thornhill. North by Northwest.
Indeed.
Now, this is not Roger O. Thornhill's North by Northwest, kind of a Lee Daniels the Butler situation. This is different.
So I have to keep reminding myself that we're not talking about James Bond, that we're talking about Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre in this conversation, but it's hard not to have those two linked in my brain.
Sure, of course. Well, I mean, the movie really wants you to link those two in its brain. It's a movie about a debonair, functional alcoholic secret agent who likes to, meet the ladies.
Yeah, but I think North by Northwest is the blueprint for everything that came after it. Like, it is, as we talked about, the blueprint for James Bond, almost directly, in that, Ian Fleming wanted Cary Grant to play James Bond. It involves multiple identities or mistaken identities, all of these, subplots of intrigue and secret agents and things happening that John Q. Public doesn't know about, happening in the background of landmarks around the world.
And on top of landmarks.
And on top of landmarks. And I think, I might be making this up and conflating trivia for North by Northwest with trivia or an actual thing that happened in Spaceballs.
Wow. But a true cinephile. Was that in The Seventh Seal or was that in Spaceballs? I cannot remember.
I think because Alfred Hitchcock had kind of this wicked sense of humor, and I think there was a moment when he wanted Roger Thornhill to be hanging out of Abraham Lincoln's nose. And that's definitely a thing that happens in Spaceballs when they're coming out of the Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
Anyway,
I mean, who can say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery? Maybe Spaceballs was really just riffing on Hitchcock.
Well, I mean, Mel Brooks loved Hitchcock as well and did High Anxiety, so maybe it was an offhanded reference to it. But you can take all of my extrapolating to and speculating to whatever degree you want to. You can buy into it, you cannot, you can call it bullshit, but I think one thing that is irrefutable is that Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, every single James Bond film that has come out ever, and mostly any single spy film, hinges on fashion. And you cannot take Cary Grant's iconic gray suit away from North by Northwest and not have it set the blueprint for every single type of character fashion in every single spy film moving forward.
I mean, I don't remember any fits from The Bourne Identity. Not to poke too many holes.
Excuse me. I would say that set the template for Mark Zuckerberg dressing the way he did for a good 15, 20 years straight.
Yeah.
Just a shirt and a hoodie.
Well, now I'm feeling very self-conscious about the way that I dressed for this. Look, just don't say my secret code word that activates me and makes me take out the entire U.S. embassy using kung fu. It could happen at any time.
NIMBY.
Yeah. Yes, that's. Neighborhood council meeting. It'll be like the church in Kingsman. Yeah, no, but this is really, I think, a great template for what is a what is a fun adventure. What is a globe-trotting, kind of politically charged in terms of just Cold War, national security type adventure film that both has mortal peril, life and death stakes, but also has a lead character who's having a good time and kind of quipping through it and is never so fussed that he stops being a cool dude, even when he's hanging out Abraham Lincoln's nose.
Well, and we talked about the Palma and the Hitchcock connection. Obviously, Hitchcock directed this. And I think in the spy film's DNA is stylish filmmaking.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of contentious to call Hitchcock a stylish filmmaker. The real, avid Hitchcock heads say he doesn't direct for style. He directs for emotion. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Fuck those nerds. Come fight us. Every last one of you fucking noodle-armed dicks.
That said, the people like De Palma, I think whether he's directing for style or emotion or using emotion as style, who fucking cares? But I think that's a big component to the spy film is like it's big, it's stylish, it's what sets it apart from your, everyday action movie.
Sure.
Like a spy movie is going to have that just little extra stylish sheen to it, and I think it comes from North by Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchcock, for your many contributions to the cinematic form.
All right, let's get out of here and do another 5-4 next week when we do Life or Something Like It.
That's life in the fucking movie memory machine, Seattle. For Landon Solano, I've been Truman Caps.
For Truman Caps, I've been Landon Solano. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Movie Memory Machine is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpod to keep the machine running. Theme song by Porky's Groove Machine. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. For more information on today's show, visit moviememorymachine.com.